What inspired me to start surfing was I hitchhiked to the Pensacola Beach in May the 1st, 1965. And I was in the ninth grade, and all my friends were going out to Pensacola Beach that weekend. I knew that. And I was supposed to meet a friend on the beach, and so I walked down the beach and found him. His name was Ken Roose, and he was sitting there with a surfboard and a girl on each side. And he was more interested in the girls and not in the surfboard at all. And I was kind of shy around girls, so I didn't really want to hang with the girls, but I'd never surfed before, and he said I could use a surfboard. So I paddled out into probably what it was knee to thigh high wind chop, and turned around and caught my first wave, and actually picked the wave up and I was riding the wave towards the beach, and I guess that surprised Ken. He stood up, and the girl stood up with him, and it kind of embarrassed me that they were watching me, so I just kind of did a flip off the board, and they just kind of, didn't watch me anymore after that. But something went through me. I said, I could have rode that wave all the way to the beach if I had wanted to. So I paddled right back out, turned around, caught the next wave, rode it all the way to the beach, and came instantly addicted to the sport of surfing. So, I was just really trying to make a living off surfing, and I was riding for a surfboard company called Challenger Surfboards, and they were paying me a weekly salary. But they promised me once I got to a certain rating that they would do something for me. And when I got to that rating, which is a 4A rating, they didn't do it. And so I kind of, Skip was my friend, and so I was kind of, pouring my heart out to him. So he got the wheels rolling. He didn't really have the money to pay me like Challenger did, but he wanted me to be connected with him and Greg Noll, and so I said, well, try to get Greg Noll to do a model, and that way I can make a royalty off every one that sells, and that way I'll be able to be on Surf Shop E surf team, and Greg Noll and everything. And Skip approached Greg Noll, and Greg Noll flew to Pensacola, and we didn't have videos, and we didn't have any surf, and we showed him some Super 8 movies of me surfing, and he mainly did it on Skip's word, I'm sure. And he gave me my own model, and the model put me into the sense of being a professional surfer. That's how you made money as a surfer back then. And the royalties I made from the Greg Noll model, I saved. And by the end of 1970, Skip had gone back to Delaware, and business had gotten really hard for him. And he decided to get out of the surfboard business. So he called Ken Roose and I and told us we could have whatever was left in this little surf shop he had been renting, and good luck. And so I, at that same time, was invited to the United States Surfing Championships in Huntington Beach, flew out there to that, and flew from Houston, Texas with this woman called Jackie Surf Shop. Jackie Alexander was her name. And she was like my first clothing sponsor. She made clothing called Jackie Surf. So I was getting free clothes from her, free surfboards from Greg Noll, and royalty on every Yancy Spencer. But yet we had this surf shop that Skip had left us, and with no money to run it. So I told her that, and when we were in California, she was trying to find someone to sponsor me, because Greg Noll was also about to end his surf career at that time. He was about to bail, and I needed someone to to ride for it. So she searched around California, and right before I got on the plane to fly back after the United States Surfing Championships, a man named Jay Stone, who owned Blue Cheer Surfboards, approached me and said, yeah, I'd like to sponsor you, give you your own model, plus I'll pay you a salary. And then at the airport, I told him, I said, well, this guy named Ken Roose and I have this surf shop that a friend of ours, used to own, and he's gone now, and we have no money. And he goes, well, I'll be there in a week, and I'll look it over, and I'll give you my decision. So he flew back, saw the situation, said he would take over the surf shop. I could continue to be a pro surfer, travel and surf. He would pay me to surf plus a model with my name on it. And then he would pay Ken Roose to manage the shop. So that was like a dream come true. And for a year he did everything he promised. And within a year he went bankrupt. And he called me and said, Yancy, I'm going out of business. and you can have the surf shop. He had brought back an old van. He said you could have the van, you could have whatever merchandise is left in the store. Now, he was just renting the building. Now, he wasn't giving me a building. He was just giving me a business that had been in business for 2 years now. So I took over that business and changed the name to Innerlight Surf Shop. It had been Greg Noll Surf Shop when Skip owned it, New Era Surf Shop when Jay Stone owned it, and then Innerlight Surf Shop when I took it over, and that was in the fall of 1971. I started surfing in '65, and then the World Contest '66 appeared on TV about a year and a half later, and it was just so exciting to me. Nat Young won it, and it was just, I just loved the way it, what I saw, and in my heart, I said, well, one day, when the World Contest comes back to California, because I knew at that time it went around the world. It was held every 2 years. It had been held in Peru a couple years before, and Australia a couple years before that, and it was in California, and I think it was going to Puerto Rico next. And I knew it would eventually come back to California, and I'd only been surfing a year, and I said, when it comes to California again, I'll be there and I'll win it. And it did come to California again. It came in '72, and I was there, and there was a World Contest team tryouts in Oceanside, California, and 8 guys came from California and from East Coast, and we had to surf to be on the team in a tryout. And so I worked my way through the tryouts, and about halfway through the contest, I met up with a surfer named Johnny Fain, who was a really famous surfer from the '60s, but he really hadn't made a name in the '70s. And we had both ridden for Greg Noll during the late '60s and early '70s, and he was kind of the big guy before me, and then Greg kind of turned his focus more on me, and I think he had a grudge against me, and I never knew it, because we were out in the heat, and there was 4 of us in the heat, and he was surfing against another guy, and I was surfing against another guy, so we really weren't competing against each other, even though we were 4 in the water at a time. It was only judging 2 against 2. And I took off on a wave, and it was my wave, and Johnny took off on the shoulder, and for some reason came right into me and knocked me off my board. And we didn't have leashes then, so I had to swim all the way to the beach to get my board. And he didn't get penalized because he wasn't surfing against me, but it cost me the heat, and I lost that heat. And the guy I was surfing against, I was beating him pretty easily. He was more of a big wave rider. He's from Santa Cruz. And so that threw me back in the loser round. And I couldn't lose again. And then, so I worked my way again, and then I came up against David Nueva, who was one of the best surfers in the world that time. But I had just beaten David Nueva a couple months before that back in on the East Coast on the first really big pro contest ever held in the United States. First place was $1,000, and I beat David Nueva, and so I was pretty confident, and but I didn't have to surf against David Nueva. This is the funny thing about this, and he wasn't really in my heat, and a California guy named Gary Goodrum was in the heat with David, and he was protesting to the contest director for some reason, and then the contest director walked over to me and goes, "Hey, do you mind if we change you to David Nueva's heat?" And I just beat him, so I was real confident. But when I beat David Nueva in May, he was riding a little thick single fin board and was surfing pretty bad for David Nueva. Well, during that time between May of '72 and this is October of '72, he had gotten on twin fin fishes, and his surfing was on a whole different level. And so I stupidly said, yeah, I'll surf against David Nueva, and went out there and lost the heat. He beat me by just a couple points, and he went on to make the World Contest team. I didn't make the World Contest team, and so I never got a chance to become World Surfing Champion.